A very useful little handy trick for all our practice to make things more efficient and also sometimes more enjoyable is what I call repertoire for technique. And it's basically what it sounds like. It's the idea that instead of playing your Kreutzer etudes to work on your right arm, you swap it out and you pick a passage. Maybe you pick some, this is Bach right here. Maybe you pick some movement from Bach. You pick something similar. Maybe you pick a run you have in a piece. Maybe you pick a Paganini Caprice. And you use the notes in whatever piece that is to work on the technique that you were supposed to be working on anyway. So take the example, Kreutzer 2, right? Da, 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 da. You could equally work the same thing if you played Bach, right? If you played, let me see. There are movements, so Kreutzer 2, of course. Yeah, but you could equally work the same thing going. Which is Bach. That's the, I think it's the third double from the first partita, first Bach B minor partita. So using things like that is really, really helpful because not only does it make things more efficient because you get to practice a little bit of the actual repertoire while you're practicing the technique, but it also makes the technique better because now when you practice the technique, it's in the context of where you'd actually be using it, right? Even though if it's not quite in the context of where you've been using it, right? Even if you have to slow down the tempo dramatically to practice a different technique on a different piece, using repertoire, all these different pieces of repertoire to work on your technique is a really, really good thing. While I have this right here, might as well show off some. Bach is particularly good. And this is a thing that's been done for ages, using Bach to sort of warm up and to work on these techniques, but it works with everything else. And just knowing this idea of repertoire for technique, knowing the idea that in the case that you need to focus especially on your technique, on your repertoire, or in the case that you're just tired of playing your etudes, you can and you should. It'll be very beneficial for you to just swap out occasionally with a movement of Bach or the fast movement from whatever piece you're playing or some passage of semiquavers. So some good ones are, you could use this, which is the presto. I hope this is in focus. You can use the presto of the G minor sonata. That's also good. You can use the doubles, generally all of the doubles. So this is the double right there of the first partita, the second double as well. You see this is very plain, just like straight semiquavers or quavers. Yeah, this one as well, also the same. The third double, which I just played before. You can also use, so all the doubles. This works as well. And doing this, you just get to play things in different contexts, things that also more realistically fit the instrument. Because a lot of times the etude is more or less reflective of patterns you're going to encounter and play. But if you're practicing Bach, that is exactly the notes that you'll be playing when you're practicing Bach. Some other good ones, I'll go through all of this now while we have it here, because it's very useful to have sort of just a knowledge of what you can use in these. Note this page, the Allegro of the second sonata. You can use the Allemande of the first partita, the Gigue of the second partita, which is this. This has fingerings and bowings in it, I know. You can use parts of the chaconne if you really feel like it. Any parts where there's just straight, plain notes that you can sort of adjust to your needs, whether you need to play dotted rhythms, whether you need to play a bowing in threes or in twos, whether you need to play your collet, whether you need to play off the string, on the string, with all the bow, without any of the bow. You can use these passages to do so. Another helpful one is the last movement. This is very good for string crossings as well. Last movement of the third Bach sonata. There is also, so these are the 2 more pages of it. There is also the first movement, of course, of the third partita. Then there is the jig of the first partita, third partita, I should say, at the end. And so those are basically all the good Bach movements. Even if you don't play them, even if you can play using bits of the chaconne long before you would ever dare to pick up that piece and try to play it. And that's very helpful because now when you actually come to the piece, even when it's like a year, 2 years later down the line when you come to the piece, now the fingerings are a little more comfortable in your hand. Not because you've already practiced it with the intent of performing the piece, but because when you were going through your technique, those were the patterns that you use a lot of the time. So I think repertoire for technique, this is going to be a shorter video, repertoire for technique is just useful. It's just fun, it's just useful, nice handy improvement, very few downsides and very easy to do to improve your practice.